Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 6 of B-Road Ballers, the review series for the hot hatches, old and new, of Gran Turismo 6. And in this episode we're featuring the 5th incarnation of probably the most legendary hot hatch of all time, the Golf GTi, the car which perhaps started it all, the car that got mainstream companies into acknowledging that the hot hatch was a potentially massive market that could be tapped into. And the Mk.5 version of the Golf GTi is certainly no slouch. Now it's powered by a 2-litre turbo engine, and it's front-wheel drive, unlike its big brother, the R32, which incidentally, the Mk.5 version of the R32 is not yet available on Gran Turismo. Perhaps surprising, but that's just the way it is at the moment. So what does this GTi have to offer? Because, as we've said before, the hot hatch category is a fiercely competitive one. So what does the Golf have to bring to the table? Well, fully tuned, it puts out 394 horsepower, which is respectable, but, to be brutally honest, does fall behind many of its rivals. Likewise with the torque, respectable, but not class-leading at 333 pound-feet. One way in which the Golf is very good, however, is its weight. Now, many front-wheel drive hatchbacks are relatively lightweight, but the Golf is far lighter than many of its rivals. It weighs, with the full weight loss package of course, 1,093 kilos, so not much more than a tonne. And thanks to that very low weight, even though it doesn't have class-leading power, it still has a very respectable power-to-weight ratio of 360 horsepower per tonne, which is more than enough to get the job done around the track, especially for a mass-production hot hatch. But what does it have to offer in terms of actual usable performance, drivability, and how competitive is it against its rivals, primarily being, of course, other hot hatches? Well, for performance, as we said, it's a front-wheel drive hatch, so off the line it's not quite as quick as, say, an all-wheel drive R32, etc., but that's to be expected. And actually, as far as front-wheel drive hatches go, this actually suffers from far less torque steer and understeer than many other front-wheel drive hatches, and that is largely in part due to having less power and torque for the chassis to deal with. But what about handling? Well, unsurprisingly, it's very good. The Golf GTi is kind of like the hatchback equivalent of a BMW M3. It's very much a driver's car, where you connect with the car, you feel involved with the driving, and it's very fun, very engaging, and just, you can have a lot of fun in the car regardless of whether you're winning or setting lap times. And they've done a good job of representing that on the game. It is a fun car to drive, and it's also very beginner friendly. Many front-wheel drive hot hatches have quite a lot of torque steer, a lot of torque to put through the front wheels, a lot of power to deal with, and a lot of understeer through corners, especially high-speed corners. And that can be a little bit daunting for a new driver, and if not daunting, certainly potentially frustrating. With the Golf, that just doesn't happen. The handling is very smooth, very predictable, very dependable, and very fun to drive. The turn-in is very good. You don't need any camber whatsoever, regardless of what track you're using it on, and it's just good. Put simply, it's a good handling car. It's dependable. It does the same thing every time, every lap, every corner, on every track. It never shocks you or suddenly dumps you off the track for no apparent reason. It is a dependable performance car. Now, for pure straight-line performance, it does fall behind its rivals, but on the majority of tracks that you would use a hot hatch on anyway, top speed doesn't really matter that much, because it tends to be more about mid-range performance and especially low-end handling on tracks such as here at Brands Hatch, or commonly city tracks for hot hatches. And on those types of track, the Golf really makes up for its lack of power with sheer drivability, great handling, great brakes, and that low weight, which we spoke about earlier. So overall, although I don't necessarily use this car a huge amount, I certainly have a lot of respect for what the car has achieved through pretty much every variation of the GTI, and continues to do to this day with whatever mark we're on now. I think the 7th generation it is now. So overall, would I recommend the car? Well, at 33,000 credits, or just under, it significantly undercuts its rivals in terms of price. So yes, I would definitely recommend buying it if you plan on doing, especially, obviously, hot hatch racing. Incidentally, this is also a premium hot hatch, which many of the hot hatches are not, which is nice to know. So that's it for this episode. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.